Hello bookworms and welcome back to my channel. I've been making a lot of 2021 wrap-up content recently, so I thought that I would change it up a little bit and do some 2022 what I want to do. 2022 what I want to read in the next upcoming year. So these are 22 books that I want to read in 2022. I have tried to order these, but some of these books are kind of hard to categorise, so take the categories with a pinch of salt. This first category is the second book in a series, basically. So these are series that I have already started and I want to continue this year. The first book is The Obelisk Gate by N.K. Jemisin. This is the second book in the Broken Earth trilogy. This is an adult fantasy and it is unlike anything I have ever read before. I'm very excited to see what happens next. Also, very intrigued about how this book's going to be structured, because the first book is a very specific structure that I don't know if it would work in the second book. Also, this series is so unpredictable that I literally have no idea what this book will contain. And the second series that I want to continue is the Mirror Visitor Quartet, and this is the second book, The Missing of Dulune? I think that's what that says. This is a fantasy, it is translated fiction, it was originally written in French. Again, a very individual fantasy, unlike anything I've ever read before. And another one that I don't think I can actually predict what is going to be in this book, because the first book was so unpredictable. Am I learning something about myself? Is that the kind of fantasy that I enjoy? Unpredictable and chaotic? Very intrigued to carry on with the series. Also, look at the cover. So pretty. These next lot are the first book in a series, so these are series that I want to start this year. Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. This is the first book in the Farseer trilogy, which is also the first book in like a massive extended universe that Robin Hobb writes. I've not read any Robin Hobb before, but Steph, who is a book talk friend of mine, doesn't shut up about Robin Hobb, so I thought it was about time that I gave her books a go, so very excited to start this series. Caraval by Stephanie Garber. This is one that people have been telling me to read for a very long time. The aesthetic of the front cover is very Night Circus, and we all know the Night Circus is my favourite book. I don't want to get my hopes up too much because I don't want to be let down, because so many people have said for me to read it. I think that's the reason why I've been putting off reading the trilogy for like so long. Finally, at some point this year, want to get around to at least reading Caraval and starting the series. Raybearer by Jordan Ifuko. This is actually a proof copy that I found in a charity shop. This is the first book in a duology. It is a fantasy with African mythology. Again, one that I've heard amazing things about. I really need to get around to reading it. Very popular on Book Talk. I don't own the second book in the duology though, so people that have read this book, should I have the second book on standby? Let me know. Vicious by V. Schwab. This is the first book in the Vicious, currently a duology, but I think there's going to be more books added. I have only read one book by V. Schwab, and that was The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and I fell in love with it. So I need to read more by V. Schwab. And I've heard that this has asexual representation in it, so definitely need to read this. And finally, another Book Talk favourite, we have The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I don't actually know anything about this book. I know it's a fantasy, and I've seen pictures of people doing the hair like one of the characters, like she has cool hair. That's all I know. But the sticker on the front is a quote from Leigh Bardugo, and as you can tell, love me some Leigh Bardugo. I have the whole trilogy, I have the box set. I need to start it this year. One of my reading goals for this year is to read more classics, because I feel like I have been neglecting reading classics, so this next lot of books are all classics. First, we have Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I've never read anything by Jane Austen. I'm sorry. This seems like the best place to start because it's her most famous book. Quite excited actually. The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. I actually studied this at school, but not in English. I studied it in drama, and because it was in drama and not English, we didn't actually read the book. We just sort of spoke about it, and ever since then I've wanted to read it, but I was not ready to read a book like this at 16, which was when I studied it, so I've held off reading it. And obviously there is now a TV show. I think I've seen the first season, maybe I've seen the second season, I can't really remember, but it's about time that I read the book. 1984 by George Orwell. This is a dystopian classic. It's where the phrase Big Brother comes from. I love dystopian. I don't know why I haven't read it yet. So that is why it is on this list. And finally, I think this counts as a classic. The author definitely counts as a classic author, and it is the Simarillion by Jrr Tolkien. I love The Hobbit and I love The Lord of the Rings, but I have never read anything else by Tolkien. This year, I want to change that. I'm at least going to read the Simarillion, and if I manage that, then I can tackle some of the other Middle-earth stories. I feel like, as someone who is such a massive fan of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, it is a crime that I haven't read this yet. Another reading goal of mine is to read more non-fiction, but there is only one non-fiction book on this list, and it is The Covent Garden Ladies by Halle Rubenhole, and I read The Five last year, and oh my god, I'm obsessed with that book. It's incredible. I highly recommend Halle Rubenhole's writing if you are a fan of feminist literature and Georgian/Victorian culture. I want to read more genres of books that isn't fantasy. I love fantasy, and I'm not going to stop myself from reading fantasy, but I want to broaden some of the stuff that I read about. So this next pile is literary fiction / contemporary. Beautiful World, Where Are You by Sally Rooney. I have read Sally Rooney's other two books and really enjoyed them. I was kind of scared to read this one because I've heard very mixed things. Also, I know part of it is set in the pandemic, and I was just not in the headspace to be reading anything that was about the pandemic. That's why I didn't read it last year. I also feel really left out because everyone's read it and people talk about it, and I want to add to the conversation. Look at those sprayed edges. So pretty. If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. This is the special edition with sprayed edges. Very pretty. This is about being attacked. Dark academia, Shakespeare. I know I'm gonna love it. This next one, very popular on Book Talk. I am terrified to read it, and it is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. Sorry, I'm really bad at names. Two reasons why I'm terrified to read it. Look at the size of it. Also, apparently this will rip your heart out, tear it into little pieces, and throw it down the drain. But I do enjoy a good cry, and not a lot actually affects me. So I kind of want to put this book to the challenge. Famous last words. But anyway, another Book Talk favourite. Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. I've already read One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston, and I enjoyed it. I liked the romance with a twist, I guess. Twist being sci-fi. I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued to see what people love about this book. And finally, in this category, we have Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I love Taylor Jenkins Reid's writing. She is just... I have no words. And apparently this is in like the same universe as her other books, and there's some like cameos, so I feel like I'm gonna love it. These next two, I wasn't sure what category to put them in. I didn't know whether to put them in with the literary fiction or whether to put them in with the fantasy, so they are bridging the gap between the two genres. Ariadne by Jennifer Saint. This is obviously a retelling of the character of Ariadne, and also the Minotaur, I think. Somebody in the Minotaur. I can never remember the name of the actual myth, but there's a Minotaur involved. Also, her new book is coming out this year, so I need to read this to know whether I want to get a new one. Meet Me in Another Life by Catriona Sylvie. This is a fantasy, I think. It was in the fantasy section, so I'm gonna go with fantasy. God's religious. This has been compared to The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, which again, I've already said this, I read that last year, absolutely fell in love with it. I've been told this would break my heart, kind of looking forward to it. But I put this in this category of like literary fiction and fantasy because that's the category that I would put Addie LaRue in. But I'll let you know once I've read it what actual category it belongs in. Finally, we have fantasy books. The 10,000 Doors of January, said that really weird then. January. The 10,000 Doors of January by Alex E. Harrow. I've heard this compared to The Starless Sea, which is a favourite of mine. I'm very excited about it. Lore by Alexandra Bracken. This is The Hunger Games meets Greek mythology. It's like it was written for me. Very excited about this one. Although, also a little bit terrified because I have heard not so great things. But we'll see. And finally, the 22nd book that I want to read in 2022 is She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. My copy is signed. Look at the teeny tiny signature. Heard very good things about this book. I don't think I've heard a single negative thing about this book actually. Also, one of the quotes on the front is from Samantha Shannon, and I love Samantha Shannon. There we have it. Those are 22 books that I want to read in 2022. So far, I've read 7 books this year. None of them have been these books. And I'm also very much a moon reader, so I'm not very good at sticking to TBRs. Hopefully I'll get to at least the majority of them. But I'm making this video to hold myself accountable. I need to read them. Let me know which ones I should prioritise out of these 22. Also, have you set yourself any reading goals or a specific TBR for the year? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you are new here. Thanks for watching guys, and happy reading!